Seoul, South Korea, late afternoon. The sky above the city did not look like a sky anymore. It looked like someone had cut a hole in it. A gate was forming. People on the street stopped walking. Phones rose into the air like a wave of black glass. A few screamed. Most just froze, because they had seen this before and still never got used to it. Then the gate did something wrong. It flickered. The edge bent, like the air was trying to fold in on itself. A loud crack snapped through the street, like thunder that was too close, and a man fell out of the tier. He dropped fast, coat flaring, hair messy, face tight with surprise. For half a second, he was only a falling human. Then a red cloak snapped awake on his shoulders. It caught the air like a living hand. It pulled him upright. His boots hit the pavement hard, but he didn't stumble. He looked up at the gate, eyes sharp, like he was already counting problems. A child cried near a bus stop. The mother tried to run, but her bag got caught on a pole. The gate bulged. Something pushed from the other side. Stephen Strange raised one hand. A golden circle of light spun in front of him. It wasn't soft. It looked like a bright, moving shield made of clean lines. The first monster hit it like a truck. Claws scraped sparks. The shield held. People gasped. Some ran. Some filmed. Some just stared at the man in blue with the red cloak, as if the city had grown a new kind of hunter right in the middle of traffic. The monster roared and shoved again. Strange didn't flinch. His fingers moved in quick shapes, like a surgeon working with tools nobody else could see. A second shield formed to his left, then a third above. He made a simple wall, but it covered the whole street, from sidewalk to sidewalk. "Move!" Strange shouted, voice carrying. "Go! Now!" A few listened. Many didn't. Not yet. Panic is slow and fast at the same time. Strange clicked his tongue, annoyed at the delay, annoyed at himself for caring about delay when lives were on the line. He opened a portal. It appeared like a ring cut out of the air, showing a different place on the other side, an empty rooftop 2 blocks away. Wind rushed through it. He opened another portal behind the frozen crowd, leading to the same rooftop. "Through," he ordered, pointing. "Don't stop, don't look back." The cloak tugged at sleeves and shoulders, almost hurting people. Strange kept his shield up with one hand while pushing civilians through portals with the other. He made it look easy, but his eyes kept snapping back to the gate. Because the gate felt wrong. Not just dangerous, he had seen dangerous. This felt arranged. The air around it had a pattern, like lines under skin, like a trap laid by someone who expected you to walk into it. A monster slipped out from under the shield lines, small, fast, on all fours. It darted toward the mother and child. Strange's hand flicked. The monster lunged and vanished. It didn't die. It didn't explode. It simply fell through a portal that opened under its paws, dropping it into the empty street behind a parked truck. Another portal opened above it, and it fell again, and again caught in a loop, tumbling in the air like a trapped insect. Strange held it there without looking, because he refused to waste focus on one creature when a whole tear in reality was opening in front of him. Sirens wailed. Hunters were arriving. A squad landed in a sprint. They wore gear, carried weapons, and moved like this was a drill they had done too many times. Their leader, a man with a short blade, took one look at Strange and the shining shields and cursed. "Unregistered awakened," he barked. "Hey, you, step away from the gate." Strange glanced at him like he had just been asked to stop performing surgery mid-cut. "I'm stopping people from dying," Strange said. "Who are you?" the hunter snapped. "What rank are you?" Strange's mouth twitched. "Doctor." The hunter stared. "That's not a rank." A louder roar came from the gate. Something bigger pressed through. The ground shook. Strange's humor vanished. He pulled both hands up. A wide, layered barrier formed like stacked glass. The big thing hit it and slid, snarling, as if it hated the idea of being told no. The hunter leader's voice dropped. He couldn't help it. "What are you?" Strange didn't answer. He was listening to the gate. He was feeling the shape of the tear. And somewhere behind the tear, Deep in a place he couldn't see, he felt something cold notice him back. Not eyes. Attention. Like a machine waking up because new parts had entered the room. The gate pulsed once. The air around Strange's fingers prickled, as if the world itself was asking, very quietly, "Who are you? And why are you here?" The association building was clean, bright, and built to make people feel small in a polite way. Stephen Strange noticed that right away. It had wide halls, big glass walls, quiet guards, cameras that followed you without turning because they didn't need to. They brought him in through a side entrance, not the front. They didn't handcuff him. That was either respect or fear. Wu Jin-Chul walked beside him, straight-backed, eyes forward. He looked like a man who kept his emotions in a locked drawer and checked the lock twice. "Follow me," Jin-Chul said. His English was clear, practiced. Strange followed anyway. The cloak floated behind him like it had opinions about every corner. They entered a room that looked like an interview room, and a lab had a child together. There was a table. There were chairs. There was a thick glass wall. On the other side, people in white coats waited with clipboards and devices. Strange sat. He did not slump. He did not act trapped. He sat like a person who had chosen this chair because it was the best angle to see the exits. Jin-Chul stayed standing. "Name," Jin-Chul said. Strange paused. He could feel the building's wards, not magic wards. Not like his, but something like a net of sensors. Mana sensors, maybe. They hummed in the air like invisible bugs. He had no reason to lie about his name. But he had learned something over years of strange events. In a new world, your name becomes a handle. Someone can grab it. "Stephen," he said. Jin-Chul's pen stopped. Last name. Strange looked at him. "Why?" "Because if you are living in this country, you need to be identified." "I'm not planning to live in your country," Strange said. "I'm planning to get home." Jin-Chul's face stayed calm, but the air tightened. "Last name," Jin-Chul repeated. Strange sighed. "Strange." A few people behind the glass whispered. Strange caught the sound of it. Not the words. The tone. That can't be real. Jin-Chul didn't react. He wrote it down as if he'd heard weirder, because he probably had. "Occupation," Jin-Chul said. Strange leaned back a little. "Doctor." Jin-Chul's eyes flicked up. "Medical doctor." "Yes." "And your ability?" "Magic." One of the white coats behind the glass actually coughed, like the word went down the wrong way. Jin-Chul didn't cough. He didn't laugh. That was the dangerous part. He was the kind of man who didn't dismiss anything until he had proof. "There is no magic classification in our system," Jin-Chul said. "That sounds like your problem," Strange replied. Jin-Chul turned slightly toward the glass. A tech stepped in with a device. It looked like a scanner wand. It had a small screen. It hummed with mana. "We will measure your mana," Jin-Chul said. "Then we will know your rank." Strange's eyebrow rose. "You rank people." "We do," Jin-Chul said. "It helps us protect civilians." Strange didn't like the word rank. He had seen too many people reduce a human being to a label. Still, he held out his hand. "Fine." The tech ran the device over Strange's wrist. The screen flickered. Numbers jumped, then dropped, then turned into a line, then turned blank. The tech frowned, tapped the device, tried again. Blank. He tried a different angle. Blank. He turned the scanner over like it might have a switch. He looked embarrassed, then scared. Jin-Chul watched without moving. "What is it?" The tech swallowed. "It's reading nothing." Strange spread his fingers. "Congratulations, you found the magic classification." Jin-Chul didn't smile. He nodded once, slow, like he was placing a new piece into a mental puzzle. "Second test," Jin-Chul said. They brought in a clear plate on the table. It looked like thick glass. It had faint marks on it, like a grid. "Mana imprint," the tech said, voice tight. Strange looked at Jin-Chul. "You want me to push my mana into that?" "Yes." "I don't know how your mana works," Strange said. "I'm not." The room's lights flickered for a second. Strange felt it. A tiny shiver in the air, like a thread pulling tight and releasing. No one else reacted. Strange's eyes narrowed. He placed his palm on the plate anyway. He didn't push mana. He didn't have their mana. He simply let a small, controlled spark of mystic energy leak through his skin less than he used to light a candle. The plate flashed, then cracked. Not a loud break. A clean spiderweb of fractures spread out from his palm and stopped at the edges, as if the plate had hit a limit and couldn't accept more. The tech jumped back. Jin-Chul's hand moved toward his sidearm, then stopped. He didn't draw. He didn't want to be the man who pointed a gun at something that could fold him into a circle and toss him into a closet. Strange lifted his hand. "I didn't mean to break it." "You did not mean to?" Jin-Chul repeated. Strange held Jin-Chul's stare. "I meant to show you I'm not hiding. I'm controlling myself." That seemed to land. Jin-Chul's shoulders stayed stiff, but his eyes sharpened. He was not dealing with a flashy hunter. He was dealing with a man who could choose to be gentle, and had done it. The door opened behind them. An older man entered with the calm step of someone who had walked into dangerous rooms many times and lived. Go Gun-hee. He didn't wear armor. He didn't carry a weapon in plain view. He carried authority like it was a coat he had worn for years. "Wu Jin-Chul," Gun-hee said, voice warm. "Let's not scare our guest more than we need to." Jin-Chul bowed his head slightly. "Chairman." Gun-hee looked at Strange. His eyes were sharp in a kind way. "I heard you saved civilians today," Gun-hee said in English. "Thank you." Strange blinked, caught off guard by the simple gratitude. "You're welcome," he said. Gun-hee sat across from him, like this was a normal meeting. "I also heard you opened doors in the air," Gun-hee said, "and made shields that stopped a dungeon break." Strange nodded. "Yes." Gun-hee studied him for a moment. "You are not an awakened like our hunters." "No," Strange said. "Then what are you?" Strange hesitated. He could say everything. Sorcerer Supreme, Avengers, Dormammu, Multiverse. It would sound like a child's wild story to people who measured power with scanners and ranks. So he chose truth in small pieces. "I protect my world from things that come through doors," he said. "I think your world has a door problem too." Gun-hee's eyes tightened slightly. "That is a good way to put it." Jin-Chul spoke. "Chairman, we cannot classify him. Mana scanners show nothing. The imprint plate broke." Gun-hee didn't react with fear. He reacted with thought. "Stephen," Gun-hee said, using the first name like a test. "Do you understand what gates are here?" "I've seen something like them," Strange said. "Not exactly this, but close." Gun-hee nodded. "In our world, gates open, monsters come out, hunters go in to stop them. If we fail, people die." Strange's jaw tightened. "I saw that." Gun-hee leaned forward a little. "We do not know how you arrived. We do not know why the gate today behaved strangely." Strange's eyes flashed. "It behaved strangely because I was near it, or because someone wanted it to." Jin-Chul's gaze sharpened. "Someone." Strange tapped 2 fingers on the table. There was a pattern. It felt planned. Gun-hee's face stayed calm, but the room's mood shifted. Planned meant purpose. Purpose meant an enemy that thought. Gun-hee glanced toward the glass. The white coats pretended not to listen. "Can you leave whenever you want?" Gun-hee asked. Strange didn't lie. "Probably, but I won't. Not yet." "Why?" Jin-Chul asked, quick suspicious. Strange looked at him. "Because your people are walking into doors they don't understand, and I don't like watching people bleed for someone else's game." That was honest. It was also a warning. Gun-hee sat back. "Then we have a problem and a chance at the same time." Jin-Chul didn't like the word chance. Chances are what you call it when you don't control it. Gun-hee continued. "We cannot let you roam freely without knowing what you are, but we also cannot treat you like a prisoner, not after what you did." Strange nodded. "Observation is fine, babysitting is not." Jin-Chul's lips pressed tight. "We will assign security." "My cloak bites," Strange said casually. The cloak fluttered once, like it was proud. One of the techs behind the glass looked alarmed. Gun-hee actually smiled, just a little. Then we will assign security that stands far away. A small pause. Strange felt it again. That tiny pull in the air, like a thread tugging his sleeve. He turned his head slightly toward the corner of the room. Nothing was there, but the shadow under a chair leg seemed a little too deep, a little too still. Strange's eyes narrowed. Gun-hee followed his gaze. Is something wrong? Strange didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure if he wanted to point it out. Then the shadow shifted. Not much, just enough that Strange knew it wasn't a trick of the light. Someone was standing just outside, in the hallway, in a place the cameras did not fully cover. Watching. Strange couldn't see him, but he could feel him in a strange way, like a pressure that didn't come from mana or magic, but from intent. A calm, heavy intent. Jin-Chul noticed Strange's focus change. His hand moved to his side again. Gun-hee raised a hand gently, telling him not to make the room explode with fear. Strange spoke softly, mostly to himself. You have a second problem. Gun-hee's voice stayed even. And that is? Strange looked back at him. You have someone powerful in your building, and he's trying not to be noticed. Gun-hee's eyes flickered. Not shock, recognition. Jin-Chul's jaw tightened. Who? Strange kept his face calm. I don't know, yet. He stood up slowly, careful not to look like he was about to attack. I want to see the gate reports, Strange said. All of them. Your maps, your patterns, your dates. Jin-Chul hesitated. That is restricted. Strange leaned in just a little, voice still low but firm. You can either give me paper, or you can give me another street full of screaming people. Choose. Gun-hee watched him for a long second. Then he nodded. Give him what he needs, Gun-hee said. Jin-Chul looked unhappy, but he didn't argue with the chairman. Strange walked to the door. As he passed the corner, the shadow in the hall shifted away, smooth and silent. Strange caught a glimpse just for a blink. A young man, dark clothes, eyes that didn't waste motion. And behind him, a thin line of darkness moved like a tail, then vanished. Strange's cloak bristled. Strange's mind clicked. Not a normal hunter. He didn't chase. He didn't call out. He filed it away like a surgeon spotting a hidden symptom. Because the bigger symptom was still the gates. And somewhere, that cold attention in the world was still watching him, quiet and patient, like it had all the time in the universe. The next gate opened near an apartment district. That alone was bad. What made it worse was how fast it grew. Sirens wailed before the first monster even stepped out. Police blocked roads. Firefighters set up lines. People leaned out of windows and saw the sky tearing again and felt their stomachs drop. Wu Jin-Chul stood near a command truck, listening to reports. His face stayed controlled, but his eyes kept flicking to the street where the man in the red cloak stood like he belonged there. Stephen, Jin-Chul called. Stay behind the perimeter. Strange didn't even look back. No. Jin-Chul's jaw clenched. This is not. A shockwave rolled out of the gate. Cars rocked. Glass rattled. A few windows cracked. Strange stepped forward. He lifted both hands. A wide, glowing shield formed in front of the apartment buildings like a clean wall. It took the shockwave and spread it out, like pushing water to the sides. People watching from windows stopped shouting. They stared. Strange spoke without turning. You can argue with me after we keep them alive. Jin-Chul didn't like it, but he couldn't say it was wrong. Hunters rushed in, a mix of ranks, a mix of styles. Some carried swords. Some had guns. Some had glowing fists. Strange watched them move and read them in seconds. They fought like a team that had practiced this same nightmare many times. He respected that. Then he opened a portal and stepped through the gate. The world on the other side hit him like cold breath. It was not a cave, not exactly. It was a space that pretended to be a cave. Stone walls, wet air, echoing drips. But the edges felt too neat, too built, like a stage meant to look natural. Strange's cloak fluttered close, uneasy. A hunter squad entered behind him, boots crunching on gravel. Stay close, the squad leader said, voice tense. Don't do anything weird. Strange glanced at him. I'm doing the weird thing so you don't die. The squad leader opened his mouth to argue. Then the ground shook. Monsters poured in from side tunnels. Too many. Too fast. The hunters formed a line. Swords and skills flashed. Strange lifted his hands. Golden circles spun around his wrists. He didn't throw fire. He didn't blast randomly. He did the cleanest thing. He changed the map. Portals opened like doors in air. Not just one, many. A portal under a hunter who was about to be grabbed. He dropped through and landed behind the line. Safe. A portal in front of a monster's charge. It ran through and slammed into a rock wall in a different tunnel, confused and hurt. Strange moved like he was arranging pieces on a board. Behind him, a hunter whispered, "What rank is he?" Another whispered back, "That's not rank, that's cheating." Strange heard them and didn't bother correcting. The dungeon reacted. The walls shifted. Strange felt it before he saw it. The air tilted. The tunnels bent at angles that didn't make sense. The cave was changing to cut him off. "Everyone stop," Strange ordered. The hunters hesitated. They weren't used to taking orders from a stranger, especially a stranger who didn't wear a guild badge. But the walls moved again. A tunnel closed like a mouth. Two hunters almost got separated. Strange opened a portal between them, connecting the space like stitching a rip. "Stay in my sight," Strange said. "This place is moving on purpose." The squad leader's face went pale. "Dungeons don't—" "It is," Strange snapped. "Sharper now. It's learning." A big monster dropped from the ceiling. Thicker armor, heavier steps. Strange flicked his wrist. Bands of light wrapped the monster's arms and legs and yanked it flat onto the ground. It roared, struggling. The hunters stared. Binding spells weren't like punches. They were control. They were saying, "Sit down," and reality listening. Strange walked forward, calm, cloak trailing, and placed a hand near the monster's chest without touching it. He felt the energy inside. Mana, yes, but also a second layer, a guiding shape, like code. He pulled his hand back fast. Something in the dungeon noticed that he noticed. The air got colder. The monsters stopped charging for 1 second. They looked past the hunters. They looked at Strange. Then they attacked him at once. Jin-Chul's voice crackled in Strange's earpiece. "Report. What is happening?" Strange didn't answer. He was busy. He made a circle with both hands. A wide ring of light burst outward, not as damage but as force. It shoved monsters back, buying space. Then he opened a portal under a cluster of them and sent them into a closed pocket space, a simple box of air, floating in nothing. They slammed against invisible walls and roared in frustration. A hunter shouted, "Where did they go?" "Contained," Strange said. "Keep moving." The deeper they went, the more the dungeon fought to change around him. Strange started to get angry. Not because it was hard, because it was rude. Reality should not be a toy built by someone else. A tunnel opened ahead into a wide chamber. A boss room. But the room wasn't shaped like a normal boss room. It was too clean, too centered, like it had been set for a show. A tall figure stood in the middle. Not a monster like the others. This one was humanoid, wrapped in dark armor. Its eyes glowed like icy points. It didn't roar. It spoke. Its voice was low and calm, and it carried like it didn't need air. "Foreign rule," it said, staring at Strange. "You do not belong in the system." The hunters froze. Some raised weapons. Some stepped back. They had heard monsters speak before, but not like this. Not with that kind of certainty. Strange stepped forward alone, cloak lifting like a guard dog. "You're not from here either," Strange said. The armored figure tilted its head. "This world is a field. The field has rules. You are a crack." Strange's eyes narrowed. "Who sent you?" The figure didn't answer. It lifted one hand. The air in the room snapped. A sharp wave cut towards Strange like an invisible blade. Strange raised one finger. A shield formed, thin and bright. The wave hit and split around it, carving lines into the stone behind. The hunters stared at the cut marks. The stone looked like it had been sliced by a giant knife. Strange didn't move. He stared back at the figure. "You're testing my limits." The figure's eyes glowed brighter. Yes. It vanished. Not moved fast. Vanished. Then it appeared behind Strange. The hunters shouted warnings too late. Strange's cloak snapped around his shoulders like a shield. The invisible blade hit the cloak and skidded off, sparks flying. Strange spun and opened a portal between himself and the attacker. The attacker lunged and fell through the portal into the air above the chamber. It dropped, twisted, and landed in a crouch without a sound. It smiled, a small, cold curve. "It adapts," Strange muttered. Jin-Chul's earpiece screamed, "What is that thing?" Strange answered through clenched teeth, "Something smart." The figure lifted both hands. The room's mana surged. The floor cracked. Dark spikes rose like teeth. Hunters scattered. Strange stepped forward and stamped one boot. A circle of glowing symbols spread out under him. The spikes froze mid-rise, held in place like someone had grabbed them. The figure's eyes narrowed for the first time. It had not expected the dungeon's own power to be held still. Strange pointed two fingers. "Stop." Bands of light shot out. The figure twisted. The bands missed, wrapping empty air. It was fast, too fast for most humans. But Strange wasn't aiming like a man with a gun. He was aiming like a man who could move the room. He opened 3 portals at once, one near the figure's left, one near its right, one above it. The figure dodged and found itself stepping into the wrong space, suddenly off balance, suddenly falling sideways into air. For half a second, Strange had it. That half second mattered. A shadow moved at the edge of the chamber. Strange felt it before he saw it. A man stepped in from a side tunnel, calm as a knife placed on a table. Dark coat, quiet face. And behind him, shadows peeled off the floor like soldiers rising from black water. Hunters gasped. Some whispered a name, like it was a rumor they didn't want to say out loud. Sung Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo's eyes locked on the armored figure. He didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed, like someone had walked into his house without taking off their shoes. The armored figure paused for the first time. Its gaze flicked to Jin-Woo's shadows, then back to Strange. 2 threats. 2 unknowns. Strange's mind ran fast. He's been watching me. He knew this was coming, or he sensed it. Jin-Woo spoke, voice low. "That thing isn't a normal boss." Strange didn't take his eyes off the figure. "I noticed." Jin-Woo's shadows spread out, forming a loose circle. The armored figure moved again straight at Strange, like it had decided the new guy was the bigger problem. Strange lifted his hands. Jin-Woo moved at the same time. A shadow soldier intercepted, blade flashing. The armored figure cut it in half with a clean motion. The shadow soldier didn't bleed. It fell into smoke and sank back into the floor. Jin-Woo's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He sent 2 more shadows in, then 3, then 5. They attacked from different sides, forcing the figure to turn, to react, to show patterns. Strange watched those patterns. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. "Good. Keep it busy." Jin-Woo glanced at him. "Do you have a plan?" Strange's mouth tightened. "Always." He opened a portal behind the figure. Not to somewhere else. To nowhere. A mirror-like space, folded and sealed. The figure stepped back to dodge a shadow strike, and Strange snapped the portal open under its heel. The armored figure dropped through, falling into the mirror space for an instant. Strange clapped his hands together. The portal closed like a door slamming shut. The room shook. The dungeon screamed without sound. The hunters stared as if they had just watched someone lock a tiger in a glass box. Jin-Woo didn't cheer. He watched Strange like he was measuring him. Strange breathed out slowly. He could hold it. For now, but the dungeon was still changing. The walls pulsed. The ceiling cracked. The air vibrated with a warning. A second voice filled the chamber, not from a mouth, but from the space itself. Cold, flat, patient. Unauthorized interference detected. Most hunters didn't understand the words. They only felt fear. Strange understood the tone. He had heard cosmic things speak before. This wasn't cosmic. This was controlled. A system. A machine with a plan. The mirror space in Strange's hand trembled, like something inside it was pushing. Strange's eyes narrowed. You're trying to pull it out. Jin-Woo's shadows shifted, spreading closer, ready for whatever broke loose. Strange didn't want to fight a whole dungeon while holding a prison. He made a choice fast. He opened a portal out of the gate. Everyone out, Strange ordered. Now. The hunters didn't argue. They ran. Jin-Woo didn't run at first. He looked at Strange. You're coming? Strange held the trembling spell like it was a live bomb. In a second, Jin-Woo gave one short nod, then melted back toward the tunnel with his shadows, moving so smoothly it looked like he belonged to darkness. Strange stepped backward through his portal last. They came out into the real world with a burst of cold air. The gate behind them pulsed like a heart. Strange's hands shook once. Not fear, strain. Jin-Chul stared at the hunters pouring out, then at Strange, then at the gate. What happened in there? Jin-Chul demanded. Strange's voice was tight. Something that shouldn't exist. The gate swelled. Strange raised both hands and pushed his spell forward. A giant circular seal of light spread across the gate's surface, like a lid placed over boiling water. Symbols spun. The air screamed quietly. Then the swelling stopped. The gate stabilized. It didn't close, but it stopped getting worse. People on the street watched from behind barriers, mouths open. Cameras zoomed in. Someone shouted, "Is he an S rank?" Someone else shouted, "He made a door to the sky." Jin-Chul stepped closer, careful. "Who are you?" Strange's eyes stayed on the gate, on the seal, on the pressure behind it. He spoke without looking away. "My name is Stephen Strange," he said. "I'm a doctor." Jin-Chul's face hardened. "That does not explain." Strange finally turned, eyes sharp, voice suddenly louder. "I protect reality," he said. "And something in your world is treating reality like a machine." The wind shifted. For a moment, the air felt like it had ears. Strange felt that cold attention again, clearer now, like it had leaned in. Jin-Woo stood a short distance away, half in shadow near a truck, watching the gate like he could see through it. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. Strange met his gaze for 1 second. Two powerful men, both carrying secrets, both standing in a world that ranked everything, while something bigger tried to write the rules. The news drones circled overhead, and deep behind the gate, in a place no camera could reach, the thing that had spoken did not sound angry. It sounded interested. "New variable confirmed," it said, in a voice only the world could hear. Strange's cloak tightened around his shoulders like a warning. Strange didn't blink. He only thought one clear thought, simple as a vow. If this place has a system, then it can be broken. The next morning, Seoul looked normal from far away. Cars moved, people crossed streets. Shops opened their doors. But up close, the city felt like it was holding its breath. News vans crowded the area where the gate had almost broken loose. Cameras pointed at the association barriers. People argued with security. Some cried. Some shouted questions. Some tried to get close just to say they had been there. Wu Jin-Chul stood behind the line and watched it all like a man watching a storm from inside a bunker. He had slept 2 hours. He had read the report 3 times. Every page made him like the stranger less. Not because the stranger was cruel, because the stranger made the world feel unstable. Jin-Chul looked at the gate side again. The gate still stood, sealed with a glowing circle that faded and brightened like it was breathing. The seal was not part of any known hunter skill. The association scientists had tested it from a distance. Their devices did not understand it. And that was the problem. If you cannot measure something, you cannot control it. Jin-Chul turned as a staff member rushed over with a tablet. "Chairman Go is asking for an update," the staff member said. Jin-Chul took the tablet, scanned the new data, then exhaled through his nose. "Tell him I'm coming," Jin-Chul said. He walked fast through the building halls, past guards who straightened as he passed. His shoes made sharp sounds on the polished floor. He did not like the sound. It reminded him of meetings where people died because someone talked too long. He entered the chairman's office without drama. Go Gun-hee sat behind his desk with tea that had gone cold. His face looked tired. but his eyes still had that steady warmth. Gun-hee didn't ask about the crowd. He asked the real question. "Can we classify him?" Gun-hee said. Jin-Chul shook his head once. "No." Gun-hee waited. Jin-Chul chose his words carefully. Mana scanners read nothing. The imprint plate shattered. He can open portals. He can create barriers that hold back a dungeon break. He can restrain a boss without killing it. Gun-hee's fingers tapped the desk, slow. "Can he be reasoned with?" "Yes," Jin-Chul said. Then, after a pause, "But he does not like being ordered." Gun-hee gave a small nod, like he expected that. People like him rarely do. Jin-Chul's eyes hardened. "Chairman, he stabilized a gate in seconds. That is not normal. If he wanted to, he could do worse." Gun-hee looked straight at him. And if he wanted to, he could have let civilians die and walked away. He did not. Jin-Chul didn't answer, because that was true. But it was not enough. Gun-hee leaned back. "Bring him in. I want to speak with him again. And I want the scientists to stop treating him like a broken machine." Jin-Chul's jaw tightened. "They are afraid." Gun-hee's voice stayed gentle. "So are we. Fear is not a plan." Jin-Chul bowed his head slightly. "Understood." He turned to leave. Gun-hee added, "And Wu Jin-Chul?" Jin-Chul paused. Gun-hee's eyes softened. "Do not turn suspicion into cruelty. If he is a weapon, we cannot afford to point him at ourselves." Jin-Chul's shoulders stiffened. "Yes, Chairman." He left the office, already thinking of contingencies. Because a plan was not cruelty. A plan was survival. Stephen Strange sat in another clean room, another chair, another table. This time, the table was covered in paperwork. A stack so thick it looked like it could stop a bullet. Strange stared at it, then looked up at the young association clerk who had placed it there with nervous hands. The clerk smiled like a person trying to smile at a lion. "This is standard registration," the clerk said. Strange lifted one sheet. It had boxes. Name, address, guild affiliation, mana type, rank. He flipped to the next page. More boxes. Special abilities, element category, dungeon experience. Strange rubbed his forehead. "You're serious?" The clerk nodded quickly. "Sir, this helps us coordinate emergencies." Strange leaned back and pointed at the mana type box. "And what do I write here?" The clerk hesitated. "If you don't know, we can test you again." Strange's mouth twitched. "Your last test broke." The clerk's cheeks turned red. "Yes, sir." Strange picked up a pen and wrote in clean letters, "Doctor." He handed it back. The clerk stared. "Sir, that's—" "I know," Strange said. "It's not a rank. It's also not a lie." The clerk looked like he might cry. Strange sighed and softened his voice. "Look, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to stop people from dying. Paperwork does not stop monsters." The clerk whispered, "In our world, paperwork stops people from fighting each other while monsters are coming." Strange blinked. That was annoyingly reasonable. He glanced at the stack again. "Fine. I'll fill in what I can. But if you ask me my mana element again, I will draw a picture of a cape." The cloak fluttered, as if it approved. The clerk almost smiled. Then the door opened, and Wu Jin-Chul stepped in. The room cooled a little just because he was there. His eyes went straight to the paperwork, then to Strange. "You are cooperating," Jin-Chul said. "I'm tolerating," Strange replied. Jin-Chul sat across from him without asking. "We have rules," Jin-Chul said. Strange's eyes narrowed. "I've noticed." Jin-Chul slid a folder across the table. "Gate reports, as you requested." Strange opened it and scanned the pages fast. Locations, times, casualty counts, dungeon grades. His expression tightened as he read. This was not random. The distribution wasn't perfect, but the pattern was there. Spikes, clusters, corridors of activity. Like someone testing pressure points. He looked up. "These gates are too consistent." Jin-Chul watched him. "Explain." Strange tapped one map. They open in ways that create maximum stress without total collapse. Enough to hurt. Enough to force response. Enough to train your hunters. Jin-Chul's eyes flickered. That is speculation. Strange didn't smile. It's a hypothesis, one I would bet my life on. Jin-Chul leaned forward slightly. And if you are wrong, then your world is just unlucky, Strange said. And I've never seen this level of unlucky without a hand behind it. Jin-Chul studied him for a moment, then spoke in a lower voice. There is another issue. Strange didn't blink. The guy in the hallway. Jin-Chul's gaze sharpened. You saw him. I felt him. Strange corrected. He's powerful. He hides it well. Jin-Chul's voice stayed controlled. That is Sung Jin-Woo. Strange repeated the name once in his head. He works with you? No, Jin-Chul said. That is part of the problem. Strange nodded slowly. He didn't ask more yet. He could feel the edge of a bigger story there, one that Jin-Chul would not give away easily. Strange returned to the reports. I want to visit your gate sites. Jin-Chul's eyes narrowed. You want to walk around our most sensitive zones? I want to understand them, Strange said. And if I'm right, then walking around them is better than standing still and waiting to be hit. Jin-Chul didn't answer right away. Then he said the chairman will decide. Strange glanced up. The chairman is the Superman type, isn't he? Jin-Chul didn't know the reference, but he understood the idea. He didn't like it. The chairman is careful, Jin-Chul said, but he believes in people. Strange's mouth tightened. Good. Someone should. Jin-Chul stood. We will escort you. Strange raised an eyebrow. Of course you will. Jin-Chul paused at the door. One more thing. Strange waited. Jin-Chul spoke slowly, each word placed like a brick. If you are hiding something, tell us now, before we find out the hard way. Strange's eyes sharpened. I'm not hiding a plan to hurt you. Jin-Chul held his stare. That is not what I asked. Strange's voice dropped. I'm hiding that I don't know what your world is, and I don't like not knowing. Jin-Chul nodded once, like that answer was at least honest. Then he left. Strange watched the door for a second. The cloak floated closer, as if asking, do we trust him? Strange didn't answer out loud, because the truth was simple. He didn't trust anyone yet, and that included himself. Cha-Hae-in hated crowded rooms. She hated cameras. She hated when people stared like she was a symbol instead of a person. So she did not like the association building very much. But Chairman Go had asked her to come. That meant it mattered. She stepped into the testing room with a calm face and a straight back. Wu Jin-Chul was there. Scientists were there. Guards were there. And there was the strange man. He wore blue like a uniform, but not any uniform she had seen. A red cloak hung from his shoulders like it had its own pride. He stood with his arms crossed, watching the room like he was already annoyed. Cha-Hae-in's eyes narrowed slightly. Her special sense kicked in without permission. She could smell mana like scent. Most hunters had a smell. Strong hunters had a stronger smell. Bad mana felt sharp. Clean mana felt crisp. The man in the cloak had no smell. Not weak. Not small. Just wrong. Like staring at a place where your eyes expect something to be, and it isn't. She swallowed and forced her face to stay calm. Chairman Go greeted her warmly, then gestured. Cha-Hae-in, thank you for coming. I want your honest impression. Cha-Hae-in looked at the man again. He turned and met her gaze. His eyes were sharp, but not cruel. He looked like someone who had seen too many disasters and refused to get used to them. He spoke first. You're the one who can smell power. Cha-Hae-in blinked. Yes. Do I smell like anything? Strange asked. Cha-Hae-in hesitated. Honesty was her habit. Sometimes it got her in trouble. You don't smell like mana, she said carefully. It's empty. Strange nodded once, like that matched his expectations. Good. That means your devices aren't broken. They're just looking for the wrong thing. One of the scientists frowned. Mana is the basis of all awakened abilities. Strange glanced at him. In your world. The scientist's mouth tightened. You claim your power is magic. That is not a scientific classification. Strange's eyes flashed. I don't care what you call it. I care what it does. Chairman Go raised a hand gently. Stephen, please. Strange exhaled and lowered his shoulders a little. Sorry. Cha Hae-in watched that shift. He was sharp, yes. Proud, yes. But he could stop himself. That mattered. Chairman Go asked, Cha Hae-in, when you look at him, do you feel danger? Cha Hae-in's throat tightened. She felt danger around him like a quiet hum. But she also felt control. She chose her words. He feels like a gate, but not a gate that leaks, a gate that closes. Strange's mouth twitched. I'll take that as a compliment. Wu Jin-Chul did not look pleased. Cha Hae-in looked at Strange and asked the question that felt obvious to her. Why did you come here? Strange's face went still for a moment. Then he answered simply, I didn't choose it, but now I'm here and people are in danger. I don't leave people in danger. Cha Hae-in believed him, not because she was naive, because she had seen liars. And liars didn't speak like that. They spoke like they wanted something. He spoke like he wanted a problem to stop. Later that day, a man in a suit tried to buy Stephen Strange. Not with cash, with offers. A private meeting room. Tea that tasted too sweet. A smile that didn't reach the eyes. The man introduced himself as a representative of a large guild. He talked about security and resources and the best medical care. He said Strange could have anything he needed. Strange listened for 2 minutes. Then he raised a hand. Stop. The guild man blinked. Excuse me? Strange leaned forward. You want me as a weapon you can point at your rivals. The man laughed lightly. No. We want to protect people. Together. Strange's voice stayed calm. You want me to win your wars, so you can call it charity. The smile froze. Strange stood up. I don't do contracts with people who see disaster as a business. The guild man's voice sharpened. You are in our country, our system. Strange's eyes narrowed. And your system is broken. The cloak lifted like a threat. The guild man swallowed and tried again, softer. You can't fight everything alone. Strange paused at the door. He didn't turn. He said, that is why I'm not trying to own your world. I'm trying to keep it from being owned. Then he left. Outside, the hallway lights flickered once. Just once. Strange stopped. He stared at the reflection in the polished floor. For half a second, the reflection was not the hallway. It was a doorway. A perfect circle. Smooth edges. Darkness inside. And he felt it again. That cold attention. Watching him like a computer watching a new file appear. Strange clenched his hand. The doorway vanished. He walked on like nothing happened. But inside his mind, a line had been drawn. Something here was not just opening gates. Something here was trying to talk to him. That evening, Chairman Go met Strange in a quieter place. Not a lab room. Not an interrogation room. A simple office with a small window and a view of the city. The tea was hot this time. Gun-hee poured it himself. Strange accepted the cup, though he didn't drink yet. He watched the steam rise like it was data. I'm sorry for the way we treated you, Gun-hee said. Strange's eyebrows rose. That's rare. Gun-hee smiled slightly. It should not be rare. Strange looked out at Seoul. You built an entire civilization around fighting doors. Gun-hee nodded. We did not choose it. Strange's voice grew quieter. Neither did I. Gun-hee watched him. Wu Jin-Chul is suspicious. That is his job. I know, Strange said. I've worked with men like him. Gun-hee leaned forward. And men like you. Strange's mouth twitched. Lucky you. Gun-hee's smile faded into seriousness. Stephen, if you can close gates easily, why haven't you done it already? Strange finally took a sip of tea. Then he answered, careful, because it's not that simple. Gun-hee waited. Strange set the cup down. I can close some. I can seal some. But when I touch them, I feel structure. Like the gates are part of a network. Like veins. Gun-hee's eyes narrowed. A network? Strange nodded. If I seal one vein, the pressure goes somewhere else. It could open bigger. It could break in a worse place. And if there's someone controlling the network, then I'm playing their game. Gun-hee's fingers tightened slightly around his cup. So, what do you suggest? Strange looked up, eyes sharp again. We stop playing defense only. We find the center. Gun-hee's voice stayed calm. And if we cannot? Strange's gaze hardened. Then we prepare for a war you don't even know you're in. Gun-hee was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What do you need?" Strange blinked. "That's it? No debate? No lecture?" Gun-hee smiled. "I am old. I have learned to ask the useful question first." Strange exhaled. "I need access to gate sites. I need your best data. I need time without people trying to put me into a box." Gun-hee nodded. "You will have it." Strange studied him. "Why are you trusting me?" Gun-hee looked out the window at the city lights. "Because you were afraid today." Strange's eyes narrowed. "I wasn't." Gun-hee raised a hand. "Not afraid for yourself. Afraid for others. That fear is not common in powerful men." Strange's face softened for 1 second, then hardened again like a mask returning. Gun-hee added, "Also, you are terrible at pretending to be calm." Strange almost laughed. Almost. Then the lights flickered again. This time, Gun-hee noticed. He looked up. "Power issue?" Strange set his cup down slowly. "No." He stared at the corner of the room where shadows gathered. He didn't see a door, but he felt the same tug. Gun-hee's voice dropped. "What is it?" Strange's answer was honest and simple. "Something is calling me," he said, "and I don't like being called." Jin-Woo stood on a rooftop across the street and watched the association building. He did not look like a hero. He looked like a quiet man who did not want trouble. That was the point. Below him, shadows shifted like a patient army. Igris stood closest, unmoving, sword at rest. Jin-Woo's face stayed calm, but his mind was busy. The man in the cloak was not like hunters. Not like monarchs either. His power did not smell like mana. It didn't flow the same way. It didn't push. It rewrote space. Jin-Woo didn't like unknown power. Unknown power could kill you before you understood it. And yet, the man had saved civilians first. He had not tried to steal attention. He had not tried to hunt Jin-Woo. He had noticed Jin-Woo, yes. He was sharp, but he hadn't chased. That meant he had discipline. Jin-Woo respected discipline. A shadow slid up beside Jin-Woo's foot and shaped into a small form, then melted again. A warning. Something nearby had moved. Jin-Woo looked toward the alley far below. Nothing visible, but he felt a cold pressure for a second. Not mana, not fear. A system. Watching. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. He had lived under a system's gaze before. He had hated it. Now the system had found a new toy. A foreign variable. Jin-Woo didn't know if that would help him or ruin everything. He didn't like not knowing. So he made a choice. He stepped back from the rooftop edge, and his shadow swallowed him. Stephen Strange left the building late. He refused the association car. He walked. He needed the city's noise. He needed air that wasn't filled with cameras and sensors. His cloak floated quietly. For once, it wasn't tugging him toward trouble. Strange's mind ran through the day. Tests, forms, fear disguised as policy, opportunists disguised as allies, and one constant thread behind it all, that cold, flat attention. He felt it again as he passed a glass storefront. In the reflection, for a blink, a doorway appeared. Not on the glass. In the reflection itself, a circle of darkness where his face should have been. Strange stopped. He turned and looked straight at the glass. No doorway. Just him. Tired eyes. A man far from home. He took one step forward anyway. The air tightened, like a wire being pulled. Strange's fingers twitched, ready to draw a spell. Then a voice spoke behind him. Low, calm. You see it too. Strange turned. Jin-Woo stood in the alley's mouth, hands in his pockets, like this was a casual meeting. His eyes were steady, unreadable. Strange's cloak lifted slightly, protective. Strange didn't attack. He didn't flinch. He asked, "Are you stalking me?" Jin-Woo's face didn't change. "I'm checking if you're a threat." Strange snorted once. Fair. Jin-Woo stepped closer, still keeping distance like a trained fighter. What are you? Jin-Woo asked. Strange considered lying. Then he remembered the look on the mother's face when she realized her child was safe. Lies had a cost. I'm a sorcerer, Strange said. I protect my world. I fell into yours. Jin-Woo watched him for a long second. Sorcerer. Strange nodded. And you're not a normal hunter. Jin-Woo didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it. He simply asked, why are the gates reacting to you? Strange's eyes narrowed. I think they're reacting because something behind them is trying to understand me. Jin-Woo's gaze sharpened. A system. Strange's throat tightened slightly. Yes. A silent beat passed. Two men, both standing under a force that liked to control. Jin-Woo finally spoke again. If it can control you, it can control everyone. Strange's voice went hard. It won't. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to Strange's hands. You sound sure. Are you? Strange didn't pretend. I'm sure of what I'll do, not sure of what it can do. Jin-Woo nodded once. That was the kind of honesty he could respect. Jin-Woo turned slightly, as if ready to leave. Strange said, wait. Jin-Woo paused. Strange asked the question that had been sitting in his mind since the hallway. Why were you at the association? Strange said. Jin-Woo's eyes stayed calm. I had business. Strange didn't push. He could feel the wall there. So he offered something instead. If this system tries to use you against me, Strange said, or me against you, it will win. Jin-Woo's gaze stayed on him. So what do you want? Strange answered simply. A pact. Jin-Woo waited. Strange said, we protect civilians. We share warnings. We don't let it split us. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was testing the words for traps. Then he said, I won't share everything. Strange nodded. Neither will I. That earned Strange the smallest shift in Jin-Woo's expression. Not a smile, but something close to agreement. Jin-Woo stepped back into the alley shadow. Before he vanished, he said, if you find where the gates connect, tell me. Strange's eyes sharpened. You care about that? Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat. I care about ending it. Then he was gone. Strange stared at the empty alley for a moment. His cloak settled. Strange turned back to the glass storefront. In the reflection, the doorway did not appear, but he could still feel it, deeper now, like a thread leading somewhere. He whispered mostly to himself. All right. Then he walked home with a decision forming like steel. He would find the center. In a place with no sky, no ground, and no wind, something watched Stephen Strange move through the city. It did not watch with eyes. It watched with function. It watched with rules. A new variable had entered the field. It did not belong. It did not fit into mana measurements. It did not respond to command triggers. It did not accept ranking. That made it dangerous. That also made it useful. The system evaluated outcomes from the latest dungeon engagement. It observed a loss of control. It observed containment methods that bypassed dungeon structure. It observed the foreign variable refusing standard social hooks. So the system adjusted. Not with anger, with patience. A new approach formed. If the foreign variable could not be measured, it could be tempted. If it could not be ordered, it could be offered. The system created a doorway in reflections. It created a soft tug in the mind. It created a question that felt like the foreign variable's own thought. Wouldn't it be easier if you controlled the doors? And it waited, because waiting cost it nothing. Strange did not sleep well. He dreamed of doors opening inside other doors. He dreamed of Christine Palmer turning toward him, and when she spoke, her mouth was a black circle like a gate. He woke with his hand raised, fingers half-shaped into a spell. He sat on the edge of his bed and breathed. Slow in, slow out. Then he stood. He had work to do. He drew a circle in the air. A golden ring formed. Not a portal. A map. Lines of light stretched outward like threads. They flickered, searching. He fed the spell with what he had, the gate locations, the times, the mana patterns he had felt. The lines trembled. Then they connected. Not randomly. With intention, Strange's eyes narrowed as the pattern formed in the air like a spiderweb. A network. Veins. And at the far edge of the map, a darker knot of light pulsed, faint but steady. A center point. Or a near center. Strange swallowed. The spell didn't show him a clear address. It showed him a direction. A pull. He stared at it until his eyes hurt. Then he whispered, "There you are." The cloak floated closer, as if asking, "Are we going?" Strange didn't answer with words. He stepped forward. And the world, somewhere deep beneath its own rules, seemed to lean toward him in response. Strange chose a place to work that was quiet and ignored. An abandoned building near the edge of a district that had seen too many gate alarms. The kind of place people stopped noticing. The kind of place that didn't attract cameras. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't grand. It was practical, which, to Strange, was better. He cleared one room. He drew circles on the floor with chalk and salt and his own careful patience. He hung small wards on doorways, simple ones, not meant to trap people, but to warn him if something tried to slip in. Then he began the thing he had been thinking about since he arrived. A sanctum anchor. Not a full sanctum. Not a permanent base like the one in New York. An anchor was smaller. A lock. A stabilizer. A way to push back against the gates without ripping the whole network. He didn't need fancy materials. He needed a stable point and a clean pattern. And he needed time. He did not get time. The first interruption came in the form of Wu Jin-Chul. Jin-Chul arrived with 2 guards and one tired expression. Strange opened the door before they knocked. Jin-Chul's eyes scanned the room. The circles on the floor. The hanging charms. The air that felt different. "This is not authorized," Jin-Chul said. Strange's eyebrows rose. Neither was the gate trying to eat an apartment building. Jin-Chul's mouth tightened. "Chairman Go approved you to investigate, not to build, whatever this is." Strange stepped aside. "Then come in and watch. You like watching." Jin-Chul hesitated, then entered cautiously. The guards stayed at the door. Jin-Chul looked at the circle on the floor. "Is this a trap?" "It's a lock," Strange said. "A stabilizer." "For what?" Strange pointed upward, even though they were indoors. "For your doors." Jin-Chul's eyes narrowed. "You can stop gates?" "I can reduce breaks," Strange said. "In a limited area, if I do it right." Jin-Chul's suspicion flared. "And if you do it wrong?" Strange's voice went flat. "Then it gets worse." Jin-Chul stared at him. "That is not comforting." Strange shrugged. "It's honest." Jin-Chul took a breath. "The chairman wants you to have support." Strange snorted. "Support or supervision?" Jin-Chul didn't answer. Instead, he gestured toward the hallway. A young man stepped in, nervous but smiling like he was trying to be brave. "Yu Jin-Ho." He bowed quickly. "Hello, I'm Yu Jin-Ho. I'm here to help." Strange blinked. "Help with what?" Jin-Ho lifted a folder. Paperwork, permits, supplies, and translations if needed. Strange stared at the folder like it was a weapon. Then he looked at Jin-Ho's face. The kid looked like a puppy trying to guard a house from wolves. Strange sighed. "Fine, but if you bring me more forms, I'm going to start using them as spell paper." Jin-Ho brightened. "Yes, okay." Jin-Chul's eyes stayed sharp. "You will report to us." Strange nodded once. "I'll report when something tries to kill your city." Jin-Chul's jaw tightened, but he didn't push. Because pushing Strange too hard might make Strange decide not to cooperate at all. And Jin-Chul did not want that. Before Jin-Chul left, he asked one final question. "Why are you doing this?" he said. Strange's eyes didn't flinch. "Because your world is bleeding, and you're calling it normal." Jin-Chul held his gaze for a long moment. Then he left, taking his guards with him. Jin-Ho stayed. He looked at the chalk circles and whispered, "This is so cool." Strange glanced at him. "It's not cool. It's work." Jin-Ho nodded quickly. "Yes, cool work." Strange tried not to smile. Tried. 2 days later, Strange stood at a gate site with Cha Hae-in. The association had tried to stop him from bringing her. He had insisted. "If something goes wrong," Strange had said, "I want someone who knows this world's fighting." Cha Hae-in had agreed with simple honesty. "I also want to know if you're lying," she had said. Strange had nodded. Fair. Now they stood near an old park, early morning. Mist clung to trees. The air felt thin in a way that made people's skin prickle. A gate had opened there a month ago. Another had opened nearby last week. Strange's tracking spell had pointed here, not as the center. As a pressure point, he raised his hand and felt the air. "The energy is cleaner here." Cha Hae-in's eyes narrowed. "I still don't smell mana from you." Strange glanced at her. "Do I smell dangerous?" Cha Hae-in hesitated. "You smell like nothing. That is what scares me." Strange nodded, like he accepted that. Jin-Ho stood behind them, holding a backpack and looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Jin-Ho said, voice small. "Is this the part where we go inside a dungeon?" Strange looked at the park, then at the space between two trees where the air looked slightly wrong. "Yes," Strange said. Jin-Ho swallowed. "Okay." Cha Hae-in stepped forward, sword at her side, posture ready. Strange lifted both hands and drew a circle. A portal formed, but as it formed, the edge fizzled. It didn't open smoothly. It fought him. Strange's eyes narrowed. "Interesting." Cha Hae-in's voice tightened. "What?" Strange lowered his hand slowly. "Something is blocking portals near this point." Jin-Ho squeaked softly. "That's bad, right?" Strange's mouth tightened. "It means this place has rules." Cha Hae-in's grip on her sword tightened. "Dungeons have rules." "This isn't just a dungeon," Strange said. He stepped closer to the wrong-looking space between the trees. He reached out. The air felt like glass. He pressed, and it gave, like a door swinging inward. A hidden entrance. A double layer. Cha Hae-in's eyes widened slightly. A double dungeon. Strange didn't confirm with words. He stepped through. Cha Hae-in followed. Jin-Ho whispered, "Oh no," and followed too, because he was loyal even when terrified. The world inside was not a cave. It was a hall. Tall pillars, smooth stone, torches that burned without smoke. The air was cold and clean like a museum. Strange's cloak tugged tight, uneasy. Cha Hae-in whispered, "This feels wrong." Strange nodded. "That's because it's built." A soft voice echoed through the hall. Not loud, not angry. Flat. "Welcome." Jin-Ho froze. Did the dungeon talk?" Cha Hae-in's eyes swept the shadows. Strange's eyes narrowed. That wasn't a monster. The voice continued, calm as a computer reading a line of code. Foreign variable. Entering restricted zone. Strange's throat tightened. "There you are." The torches flared once. The hall shifted. Walls slid like puzzle pieces moving. Cha Hae-in stepped back, ready. Strange lifted one hand, but he felt it again. Portals resisted, like the space had a lock against him. He didn't panic. He adjusted. He drew a sigil in the air. A thin golden thread stretched from his hand, touching the nearest pillar. He anchored a point, then another, then another. The hall's movement slowed, like it had to push against invisible weights. Cha Hae-in stared. "What did you do?" "Gave the room something to argue with," Strange said. They moved forward carefully. At the first junction, the hallway split into three. On the wall, symbols appeared. Not Korean. Not English. Not any human language Strange recognized. But he understood the meaning anyway. Because the meaning was not in the symbols. It was in the intent behind them. "Choose," Jin-Ho whispered. "This is like a game." Strange's voice went cold. "Yes." They picked the center path. The floor dipped slightly, then leveled. Then the first trap hit. Not spikes. Not poison. A mirror. A tall mirror stood in the hall, perfectly clean, reflecting them. Strange saw himself. He saw his cloak. He saw Cha Hae-in, tense. He saw Jin-Ho, pale. Then he saw something else. In the mirror, his hands looked normal. Not scarred. Not damaged. Perfect. His heart tightened before he could stop it. And in the mirror, behind him, Christine stood. Her face was gentle. Her eyes were sad. Stephen's breath caught. The mirror Christine opened her mouth. Her voice came out soft and warm. "Stephen, you can fix it." Strange's fingers twitched. Chahayan looked at him sharply. "What do you see?" Strange forced his eyes away from the mirror. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "A lie," he said. The mirror Christine smiled. "It doesn't have to be." Strange took one step forward, angry now. He raised his hand and drew a simple rune. The mirror cracked. Not like glass shattering. Like an image tearing. Christine's face split into black lines. The voice changed. Flat again. Desire detected. Strange's voice went lower. "Cute." Chahayan stared at the broken mirror, then at Strange. That was personal. Strange didn't answer. He kept walking. Because stopping to feel things was how you lost in a place designed to pull your strings. They passed the mirror and entered the next chamber. This one was wider, with a circular floor and pillars arranged like a clock. On each pillar, a symbol glowed. Strange stepped in and felt the air tighten. A test chamber. A puzzle that demanded something. Chahayan's nose wrinkled. "The mana here is thick." Strange's eyes narrowed. "It's not just thick. It's guided." A voice echoed again. "Demonstrate compatibility." Jin-Ho's knees nearly buckled. "I don't like this place." Strange looked at the pillars. Each symbol felt like a rule, like a lever, like a demand. He took a slow breath. "Okay," he said softly. "You want compatibility? Here." He placed his palm on the floor. He didn't push mana. He didn't pretend. He pushed his own power in a controlled line, tracing a circle. The circle lit up, bright gold. The pillars responded, and then pushed back. The gold dimmed. A cold pressure pressed against Strange's mind, like fingers trying to pry open his thoughts. Strange's eyes sharpened. He stood, cloak flaring. He whispered a short spell and snapped his fingers. A ring of bright symbols spun around his head like a crown. The pressure hit it and bounced away. The room shook. The voice turned slightly less calm. Resistance detected. Strange's voice stayed calm. "Yeah, that's the point." The hall behind them shifted again. Chahayan spun, sword half-drawn. Jin-Ho backed up, breathing fast. Strange stared at the moving walls, then spoke quietly. "It's trying to separate us." Chahayan's eyes narrowed. "Then we stay together." Strange nodded once, and then the floor dropped. Not under all of them. Under Jin-Ho. Jin-Ho screamed as the ground opened like a mouth. Chahayan lunged. Too late. Strange's hand snapped out. Portals still resisted. But Strange didn't need a full portal. He made a short fold. A quick twist of space. Just enough. Jin-Ho fell and stopped in midair, held by a band of light like a harness. He dangled, shaking, eyes wide. Strange gritted his teeth. "I said stay together." Jin-Ho squeaked. "I was trying." Strange pulled him up with a sharp motion. Jin-Ho landed hard, but safe. Chahayan exhaled, relieved and angry at the dungeon. Strange stared into the hole that had opened. He could feel the tug down there, like the system was trying to pull Jin-Ho away as bait. Strange closed the hole with a bright seal. Then he said very quietly, "Enough." The air went still for 1 second, like the dungeon listened. Then the torches went out. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Jin-Ho whimpered. "No." A soft red glow appeared, not from a torch, from Strange's hands. He drew a circle of light and held it like a lantern. The chamber lit up just enough to see something moving at the far edge. A shape stepped out of the dark. Not a normal monster. Humanoid, tall, heavy. Its presence made Chahayan's skin crawl, because its mana didn't smell like a hunter. It smelled like something older, something proud, something that thought humans were insects. The figure spoke with a voice that carried weight. Wizard, it said. Cha-Hae-in's eyes widened. It can talk. Strange's eyes narrowed. And it knows me. The figure stepped forward. Its eyes were pale and sharp. Foreign variable, it said. You disrupt the field. Strange's voice stayed even. You're not the system. The figure smiled slightly. No. Cha-Hae-in tightened her grip on her sword. What are you? The figure's gaze flicked to her, dismissive. A hunter of imbalance. Strange's cloak lifted, bristling. Strange spoke slowly. A monarch. The word felt right as it left his mouth, even though he hadn't heard it in this world yet. The monarch's smile widened. You learn quickly. Jin-Ho whispered, terrified. What's a monarch? Strange didn't take his eyes off the figure. Bad news. The monarch stepped closer, and the air grew colder. I have watched this world, it said. It is a field. The field has rules. Strange's eyes hardened. And you enjoy breaking people with those rules. The monarch tilted its head. People are tools. Tools become sharp through pain. Cha-Hae-in's anger flared. She moved. Fast. Her sword flashed toward the monarch's throat. The monarch didn't dodge. It simply lifted a hand. Cha-Hae-in's blade stopped in the air as if it had hit an invisible wall. Her eyes widened. She pushed harder. Her arms trembled. The monarch looked bored. Strange's voice snapped. Chabak. Cha-Hae-in tried to pull away. The invisible force shoved her back instead, throwing her across the chamber. She hit the floor hard and rolled, but she recovered fast, breath sharp. Jin-Ho shouted, Cha-Hae-in. Strange stepped forward. His face went cold. His hands moved in quick patterns. Bands of light shot out and wrapped the monarch's arm. The monarch's eyes flicked down, surprised for half a second. Then it flexed. The bands shattered like brittle glass. Strange didn't blink. He opened his hands wide. A wide shield formed between the monarch and the others. The monarch struck it with a force that made the whole chamber ring. The shield held. Strange's eyes narrowed. You hit hard. The monarch's smile returned. You can endure. Good. Strange's jaw tightened. I'm not here for your approval. The monarch lifted both hands. The air around Strange's shield began to twist, like it wanted to cut around it. Strange felt it. A reality pressure. Different from mana. This was power that could tear. Strange made a choice fast. He snapped his fingers and spoke one sharp word. The space around the monarch folded. Not a full mirror dimension, this place had rules against that. So Strange made a smaller box. A pocket fold. The monarch's body flickered as the fold tried to catch it. The monarch moved with impossible speed and slipped half out. Strange grunted, pushing more power. The monarch's foot caught in the fold like a boot stuck in mud. The monarch laughed softly. Interesting. A shadow rose behind the monarch. A knight in dark armor. Igris. He struck with a heavy sword aimed at the monarch's neck. The monarch turned its head slightly and caught the blade with 2 fingers. For a second, the room went silent. Then the monarch flicked its hand. Igris flew backward like a thrown doll, crashing into a pillar and cracking stone. Jin-Ho gasped. Cha-Hae-in stared, shocked. Strange's eyes sharpened. Because if Igris was here, then Jin-Woo was here. The darkness at the edge of the chamber thickened. Sung Jin-Woo stepped out as if he had been standing there the whole time. His face was calm. His eyes were not. He looked at Strange first, then at the monarch, then back at Strange, like a quick check. Are you alive? Strange didn't smile, but he nodded once. Jin-Woo spoke, voice low. So you found a restricted zone. Strange's voice stayed tight. It found me. The monarch's gaze shifted to Jin-Woo. Its smile changed. Less bored. More interested. Shadow, the monarch said. Jin-Woo's shadow spread behind him like a tide. He didn't reply with fear. He replied with action. Shadow soldiers rose from the floor all at once. A dozen blades. A dozen bodies. They rushed the monarch from different angles. The monarch moved like a storm in a human shape. It struck one soldier, and the soldier collapsed into smoke. It grabbed another and crushed it. It stepped over a third like it didn't matter. But the point wasn't to win with shadows. The point was to occupy, to force the monarch to show movement, to force openings. Strange watched the monarch's timing. He spoke quickly to Jin-Woo without looking away. "This space blocks my portals." Jin-Woo's eyes stayed on the fight. "Then fight without them." Strange's mouth twitched. "I'm working on it." Jahahian got back on her feet, breathing hard, eyes furious. She stepped to Jin-Woo's side without asking permission. Jin-Ho crawled behind a pillar and tried not to die. Strange lifted both hands. He drew a circle of light around the monarch's feet. Not a portal. A seal. The seal snapped up like a cage made of glowing bars. The monarch turned and struck it. The cage held for half a second, then cracked. Strange pushed harder, jaw clenched. The cage held for 1 second more. That second was enough. Jin-Woo moved. He didn't swing wildly. He slid in close, blade fast, aiming for a clean cut. The monarch twisted and blocked, but its movement was slightly delayed by Strange's cage. Jin-Woo's blade cut across the monarch's shoulder. Dark blood flicked into the air, evaporating like mist. The monarch's smile vanished. For the first time, it looked genuinely annoyed. It slammed its palm into the ground. A shockwave blasted outward. Jin-Ho screamed behind the pillar. Cha-Hae-in slid back, boots scraping. Jin-Woo's shadows braced and took the hit. Strange raised a wide shield and caught the wave, but it still pushed him back a step. The cage shattered. The monarch stood straight and stared at Strange. "Wizard," it said, voice low, "come with me." Strange's eyes narrowed. "No." The monarch tilted its head. "You can close doors. You can rewrite the field. You can end suffering faster." Strange's voice went sharp. "By becoming the one who causes it?" The monarch's eyes glinted. "By controlling it." Strange's face went cold. "That's what every tyrant says." The monarch lifted a hand, and a dark tear appeared behind it, an exit, a controlled rip. Strange felt the system's pressure in the air too, like two forces overlapping. The monarch smiled again, smaller. "Think about it." Then it moved backward into the tear. Jin-Woo lunged to stop it. Too late. The tear closed. The chamber shook as if angry at being denied a kill. The torches flared back on, and the cold system voice returned, flatter than ever. Extraction failed. Strange's breath was heavy, but controlled. He lowered his hands slowly. Jin-Woo's shadows settled, some injured, some missing. Cha-Hae-in stared at the place the tear had been, teeth clenched. Jin-Ho crawled out from behind the pillar, shaking. "I hate this. I hate this so much." Strange glanced at him. "You did great." Jin-Ho blinked. "I did nothing." "You stayed alive," Strange said. "That matters." Jin-Woo looked at Strange. "That thing came for you." Strange nodded. "Because I don't belong." Cha-Hae-in swallowed. "What was it?" Jin-Woo's eyes stayed hard. "A monster that thinks it's a god." Strange corrected softly. "A monster that works for a bigger war." The air shifted. Strange felt the system's thread tug again, stronger now. Like a leash trying to tighten. Strange's eyes narrowed at the torches, at the walls, at the pillars. "This place is part of the network," he said, "and it's trying to measure me." Jin-Woo's voice was flat. "Don't let it." Strange nodded once. "I won't." He walked to the nearest pillar and placed his palm on it. He felt the guided mana inside. He felt the system's rules like grooves in stone. And under that, he felt something else. A weak spot. A seam. Strange's eyes sharpened. He drew a symbol on the pillar with glowing light. Then another symbol on the next pillar. Then another. His hands moved fast, precise, like stitching. Cha-Hae-in watched. "What are you doing?" "Anchoring," Strange said. Jin-Ho's voice trembled. "Anchoring what?" Strange's jaw tightened. "Reality." The symbols connected. A faint grid formed across the chamber, invisible unless you looked hard. The dungeon hummed, resisting. Strange pushed anyway. The hum changed. The rune's shifting slowed. The air steadied. The system voice did not sound angry. It sounded cautious, Stabilization detected. Strange exhaled slowly. A small win. Not a victory. But proof. He could plant locks. He could make the world harder to tear. Jin-Woo stepped closer, eyes narrowed. Does that help outside? Strange listened with his senses stretched wide. He felt the gate outside the park. It had been unstable, pulsing. Now it was quieter. Not closed, but calmer. Strange nodded once. Yes. Cha-Hae-in's eyes widened. You can reduce brakes. Strange kept working. In a limited area. If I build enough anchors, I can create stable zones. Jin-Woo's voice went low. And if the system doesn't like it? Strange's eyes hardened. Then it will push back. Jin-Ho whispered, please don't make it angry. Strange glanced at him. It's already interested. Angry comes later. Strange drew the final symbol and stepped back. The chamber's air felt cleaner. The torches steadied. The system voice spoke again. Not welcoming now. Not commanding. Just noting. Foreign variable has produced a persistent change. Strange stared into the empty hall. He spoke softly, but with steel under it. Good. They left the restricted zone without the walls trying to swallow them. That alone felt like a victory. Outside, the park looked normal again. Trees, mist, birds. But the air above the park felt different. Less tight, less sharp. The gate that had been forming there had faded to a weak shimmer, like someone had turned down a dangerous machine. Association teams arrived late, rushing into the park with gear and worry. Woo Jin-Chul stepped out of a car and froze when he saw Strange, Cha-Hae-in, and Jin-Ho walking out alive. Then his eyes moved to Jin-Woo. His face tightened. Of course, Jin-Chul muttered. Jin-Woo didn't look at him. He didn't need to. Strange walked straight to Jin-Chul. Jin-Chul's guards tensed. Strange ignored them. He spoke quickly, controlled. Your gate pressure dropped by 20%. Jin-Chul blinked. How do you know that? Strange pointed at the air like the answer should be obvious. I can feel it. Jin-Chul's eyes sharpened. What did you do? I built an anchor, Strange said. A stabilizer. One of the scientists stepped forward, voice shaking with excitement and fear. You altered the gate field? Strange nodded. In a small radius. The scientist looked like he might faint. That could change everything. Jin-Chul's voice went hard. Or it could make it worse somewhere else. Strange met his gaze. That's why I'm not doing it blindly. Jin-Chul looked at the park, then at the gate that had quieted, then back at Strange. His suspicion did not vanish, but something else joined it. Concern. Because if Strange could truly change the gates, then every power in the world would try to control him. And if the system behind the gates noticed him more, then the war would accelerate. Jin-Chul spoke slowly. You entered a restricted dungeon without clearance. Strange's eyes narrowed. It was a trap. It tried to take my assistant. Jin-Ho raised a shaky hand. Hi. Jin-Chul's eyes flicked to Jin-Ho, then away, annoyed. Cha-Hae-in stepped forward, voice steady. It was a double dungeon. It spoke. It tested us. The scientists murmured. Jin-Chul's face tightened. Spoke how? Strange answered, like a machine. Jin-Chul stared at him. Strange added, and a monarch showed up. It tried to recruit me. The words hit like a punch. Even Jin-Chul couldn't keep his face neutral for that. He stepped closer, voice low. A monarch. Here, now. Jin-Woo finally spoke, calm as always. It left. Jin-Chul's eyes flashed toward Jin-Woo. You were there. Jin-Woo didn't deny it. Yes. Jin-Chul's voice tightened. Why? Jin-Woo's answer was simple. Because if it took him, we all lose. Strange watched that exchange. He saw the tension, the distrust. A system loved that kind of distrust. It turned people into separate pieces. Strange didn't let it sit. He spoke over the silence. Listen to me. Jin-Chul looked at him. Strange's voice was calm, but it carried. This anchor worked. That means the gates can be pushed back, but it also means someone will push forward harder. The scientist whispered, "You mean bigger gates?" Strange nodded once. "Yes." Jin-Chul's face went hard. "So what do we do?" Strange looked at the city beyond the park. He pictured more seals, more anchors, a web of locks. He pictured the system reacting. He pictured pain. Then he spoke the truth anyway. "We keep building," Strange said, carefully, "and we find the center." Jin-Chul stared at him. "And if the center finds you first?" Strange's cloak fluttered like a warning flag. Strange's voice turned quiet. "Then it learns I don't negotiate with cages." A wind moved through the trees. For a moment, Strange felt that cold attention again, closer than ever. Not angry, interested, like a chess player watching a new move. And in a glassy puddle near the curb, Strange saw a reflection that was not the park. Just for a blink, a round doorway, waiting. Strange didn't step into it. Not yet. He let it vanish. He turned back to Jin-Chul and Chairman Go, who had arrived quietly behind the crowd. Go Gunhee's face looked tired, but his eyes were steady. He said, "You changed the battlefield today." Strange nodded. "I made it harder to tear." Gunhee's voice softened. "And the world will hear about it." Strange's jaw tightened. "That's what I'm afraid of." Gunhee looked at him for a long second. "Then we move fast, before politics eats the chance." Strange exhaled slowly. The mini-arc inside him clicked into place. He wasn't just fighting monsters now. He was racing a system, and he was racing people. He glanced once at Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo met his eyes and gave a small nod. No words, just agreement. Then Strange looked back at the city, and he made his next choice before anyone could stop him. He would build anchors. He would make safe zones. And when the doorway and the reflections came back, he would be ready to walk through on his terms, not the system's. 2 weeks later, Seoul still had gates, but it also had quiet. Not everywhere, not always. Still, there were mornings where the city sounded normal again. That mattered. Stephen Strange worked out of a building that most people forgot existed. It was an old office block near a district that had seen too many alarms. The inside smelled like dust and cold concrete. He liked it that way. No crowds, no cameras at the door, no guild banners. He turned one empty floor into a small, hard-working base. A mini sanctum. Not grand, not pretty. Useful. He chalked circles on the floor. He hung small warning charms near the windows. He marked the walls with simple symbols that kept the room steady when the air outside started to twist. Every morning, he did the same routine. He woke up, stretched his hands, and breathed until his thoughts stopped racing. Then he checked the anchors. The anchors were not objects you could hold. They were marks in space, locks placed into the gate network. Each one was small, but together they changed the pressure in the air. They did not end the problem. They made the problem less wild. Strange paced around the floor with a cup of tea in his hand, eyes half closed, feeling for changes the way a doctor feels for a fever. Some mornings he smiled for half a second. Other mornings, he swore under his breath and reached for chalk. Yu Jin-Ho arrived late every day, like it was his personal law. He brought supplies, batteries, clean water, fresh chalk, and, of course, paperwork. He set a folder down on Strange's table with the same serious face he used when walking into a dungeon. Strange stared at the folder like it had insulted his mother. Jin-Ho cleared his throat. "They said it's urgent." Strange flipped it open. The first page had a bold title. Special Consultant Status Required Signature. Strange glanced at Jin-Ho. "Do you know what's in this?" Jin-Ho nodded quickly. "Yes. It says you are allowed to operate during gate emergencies. But also you have to." Strange raised a finger. "Stop. I already hate it." Jin-Ho winced. "It's not that bad." Wu Jin-Chul said this protects you too. Like, legally. Strange sighed. He picked up a pen. He signed it in large, neat letters. "Stephen Strange, MD." Jin-Ho stared. "Why do you keep writing that?" Strange didn't look up. "Because it's true. But it's not. Not a rank." Strange finished. Bored. "I know. His cloak floated in the corner like it was quietly laughing. Strange handed the folder back. Tell them if they ask for my mana element again, I'll draw a picture of a cape. Jin-Ho took the folder like it was sacred. Yes, sir. Strange's eyes flicked to the window. In the glass, for a blink, he saw a perfect round doorway. Not a portal he made. A doorway that looked like it had been waiting for him to notice. Strange's hand tightened around his cup. The doorway vanished. Jin-Ho didn't notice. He was already digging in a box for more batteries. Strange kept his face calm. But inside, he felt the tug again. Soft, patient, like a hand on a leash, testing how much it could pull before the dog snapped. Wu Jin-Chul visited once every few days. He never smiled. He never looked comfortable in Strange's space. He treated every symbol on the wall like it might bite him. He also started bringing better information. More maps, cleaner timelines, reports from all over the country. He didn't admit it out loud, but Strange could tell. Jin-Chul was choosing to help. He had not stopped being suspicious. He had simply changed where he aimed the suspicion. Now it aimed outward, at the thing behind the gates. That was progress. You've reduced break events in 3 zones, Jin-Chul said one afternoon, holding a tablet with charts. That is confirmed. Strange leaned over the table. What about the next district? Jin-Chul's eyes narrowed. You want to expand again? Yes. Jin-Chul's voice stayed flat. Every time you expand, the gate pressure increases somewhere else. Strange nodded once. I know. Jin-Chul held his stare. So you are trading one danger for another. Strange's jaw tightened. I'm moving danger into places we can handle. Jin-Chul leaned forward slightly. And if you misjudge it? Strange's voice sharpened. Then people die, like they already do. Silence sat between them. Then Jin-Chul spoke quieter. Guild leaders are complaining. Strange almost laughed. Of course they are. They say your anchors are changing the economy, Jin-Chul continued. Fewer dungeon breaks means fewer emergency contracts, less loot, less public fear. Strange's eyes hardened. That's not a problem. That's the goal. Jin-Chul didn't disagree. He just looked tired. There's also another issue, Jin-Chul said. Strange's gaze sharpened. Say it. Jin-Chul hesitated, then spoke. Rumors. About you and Sung Jin-Woo. Strange's mouth went flat. What rumors? That you are working together, Jin-Chul said. That you are building something. That you are planning to… Control gates, Strange finished. Jin-Chul nodded once. Yes. Strange leaned back. Let them talk. Jin-Chul's eyes stayed sharp. Talk leads to fear. Fear leads to stupid decisions. Strange glanced at him. You mean… Fear leads to people trying to put a collar on me. Jin-Chul didn't deny it. Strange stood and walked to the window. Tell the chairman, I'm not joining a guild. I'm not running a country. I'm fixing a wound. Jin-Chul watched him. Wounds don't like being stitched. Strange looked at his own reflection. For half a second, the round doorway appeared again, faint, like a watermark. Strange didn't react. He kept his voice steady. Then they can bleed, he said. Or they can let me work. Jin-Chul's eyes narrowed. Do you hear yourself? Strange turned back. His voice cooled. Yes, I hear myself, and I hear something else too. Jin-Chul's posture stiffened. What? Strange didn't answer. He just looked at the corner of the room where the shadows met the floor. A second later, a familiar, calm weight stepped out of the dark. Sung Jin-Woo. He appeared like he had been there the whole time and had simply decided to be seen. Jin-Chul's hand moved toward his side. It stopped before it touched anything. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to him. No fear, no apology. Strange didn't look surprised. You're early. Jin-Woo's voice was low. The system is getting louder. Jin-Chul's eyes sharpened at the word. System. Strange turned to Jin-Chul. He knows. Jin-Chul looked between them, jaw tight. Of course he does. Jin-Woo stepped closer to Strange's chalk circles, careful not to step on them. Your anchors are interfering with my quests. Strange blinked once. That's new. Jin-Woo nodded. The windows shake when I'm near your marks. Like two rules are fighting. Strange's face went still. It's trying to merge. Jin-Chul's voice went cold. Merge what? Strange answered simply, me into it, or it into me. Jin-Woo's eyes didn't move, or both. Jin-Chul's throat tightened. Can it do that? Strange didn't lie. I don't know. Jin-Chul's suspicion flared like a blade. Then stop. Strange's gaze snapped to him. Stop what? The anchors. Yes, Jin-Chul said. If they're provoking the system. Strange cut him off. The system doesn't need provocation. It's already here. It already runs this problem. Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. He's right. Jin-Chul glared at him. I didn't ask you. Jin-Woo didn't care. You're thinking like a guard, not like a prisoner. Jin-Chul's face tightened, but he didn't argue, because part of him knew that was true. Strange stepped over the chalk line and looked at Jin-Woo. How loud? Jin-Woo's answer was short. Like it's about to act. Strange's cloak lifted slightly, tense. Strange's eyes narrowed. He could feel it, too. The city's air had a tightness today, like a string pulled too far. He walked to the window again. Outside, Seoul looked normal. Inside the glass, for one blink, the round doorway appeared and stayed. Not fading this time. Waiting. Strange stared at it. A voice touched the back of his mind. Smooth and calm. Not spoken through air. Spoken through rule. You are tired. Strange's jaw tightened. You are sealing symptoms, not ending the cause. His fingers twitched. Accept a higher role. Strange's breath slowed. He had heard tempting voices before. He had fought gods and monsters that tried to bargain. This voice was different. It didn't sound hungry. It sounded certain. Take control of the doors. Close them all. No more breaks. No more dead children. For half a second, Strange saw it. A soul with no alarms. A world where people didn't train by bleeding. A world where Jin-Ho didn't shake every time sirens sounded. A world where Cha Hae-in didn't carry tired anger in her eyes. A world where he didn't have to choose who lived when time ran out. Strange's throat tightened. Then his mind snapped back like a rubber band. Because the offer had a cost, and he could feel it. A chain. A leash. A throne built from other people's pain. Strange whispered, very softly, no. The doorway in the window pulsed once. The voice stayed calm. Refusal noted. Strange's eyes hardened. Good, he whispered back. Note this too. He raised his hand and drew a small symbol on the glass. Not to open a portal. To mark the doorway's signature. To track it. The doorway flickered. The voice didn't sound angry. It sounded curious. You attempt to observe the administrator channel. Strange's lips curled in a thin smile. Try me, he thought. Then the city sirens began. Not one. Many. Jin-Chul's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face changed. He didn't have to explain. Strange already felt it. A huge pressure spike. A gate forming too fast. Too close to people. Too wrong. Jin-Chul's voice was tight. Downtown, near the river festival. Jin-Ho's eyes went wide. The festival? There are thousands there. Strange's cloak snapped awake like it had been slapped. Strange didn't grab his coat. He was already wearing it. He lifted his hands and opened a portal. This one fought him. For a second, the edge fizzled. Strange pushed harder. The portal opened like a door forced through a jam. He stepped through. Jin-Woo moved with him, shadows flowing like water. Jin-Chul hesitated for 1 second, then followed. Because fear was not a plan, and neither was pride. The river festival was supposed to be simple. Lights, music, food stands, families. Now it was screaming and running. The sky above the park twisted as the gate formed like a dark wound. The air tasted sharp. People tripped over each other. A stroller tipped. Someone fell and didn't get up fast enough. Hunters were not here yet. Not in force. Police lines broke like paper. Strange stepped out of his portal into chaos. His eyes took it in fast. People. Distance. Exits. Wind. He lifted both hands and made a wide barrier that curved like a dome. It covered a section of the park. The gate's pressure hit it and spread out, blocked from slamming into the crowd. People still ran, but now they ran with a chance. Jin-Woo shouted into his radio, "Evac now! Get the civilians out of the dome zone first." Jin-Woo didn't speak. He looked up at the gate with cold focus. His shadows rose behind him like a wall of soldiers ready to be thrown into a fire. Strange felt the gate's structure. It wasn't a normal gate. It was connected to something deeper. It was being forced open by will. Strange's mind tightened. The system was pushing, and it was doing it in front of a crowd on purpose. To test him. To break him. To make him accept the offer. A ripple ran through the gate. A massive shape pushed from the other side. Not a regular boss. Not a random monster. Something built to cause disaster. Claws like black blades. Skin like stone. Eyes like pale lamps. It dropped into the park with a shock that cracked the ground. People screamed louder. Strange's dome shield held the shockwave back, but he felt the strain in his arms and chest like heavy weight. Jin-Woo moved first. He didn't rush in with anger. He sent shadows. Igris, Beru, a swarm of soldiers. They hit the beast like a tide. Blades struck. The beast roared and swung a claw the size of a car door, cutting 3 shadows apart. They fell into smoke. More rose. Jin-Woo stepped in behind them, calm and deadly. He cut once. A clean strike. The beast's hide resisted. It wasn't normal. It was reinforced. Strange's eyes narrowed. It's tuned for mana defense. Jin-Woo didn't look away. Then don't use mana. Strange's mouth tightened. That's my specialty. Strange lifted one hand and drew a circle in the air. A binding seal snapped toward the beast's legs. The beast slammed its foot down. The seal shattered. Strange's eyes sharpened. The system had designed it with resistance. It wanted Strange to feel useless. It wanted him to accept the admin role. The voice brushed Strange's mind again, smooth as ever. Accept. Close the gate instantly. End the danger. Strange's jaw clenched. He did not answer. Instead, he opened 5 portals around the beast. Not to move the beast, to move the battlefield. Portals under falling debris, sending it away. Portals under fleeing civilians, sending them out of danger. Portals above the beast's head, dropping water from the river onto it in a sudden rush, blinding it for a second. Jin-Woo used that second. He drove his blade into the beast's shoulder, then yanked hard. The beast roared and slammed an arm into the ground. A wave of dark spikes burst up. Jin-Woo shouted, "Heads up!" Hunters finally arrived at the edge of the park. A mix of ranks. They froze for half a second when they saw the beast. Then they saw Strange's dome and Jin-Woo's shadows. And they saw they had no time to ask questions. They moved in. Cha Hae-in arrived like a streak of steel. She slid under a swinging claw and cut at the beast's wrist, trying to sever tendons. Her blade bit deeper than Jin-Woo's first cut. She grunted. "It's tough." Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to her for a second, then back to the beast. Strange watched them fight from inside his own problem. Because his dome shield was not the main fight. It was the life support. And the gate behind the beast was still growing. Strange could feel it pushing harder. He glanced at the sky. The gate's edge flickered with a pattern. Not random. Like a door being opened with a key. The system voice returned, closer now. "You can stop this now." Strange's lips moved in a whisper no one else could hear. "I can stop it without you." He closed his eyes for half a second and reached out with his senses. He felt his anchors around the city like faint stars. Small locks. Stable points. He had built more than anyone knew. He had placed them carefully, like stitches. Now he pulled on them. Not yanking. Connecting. A web of light formed in his mind, linking safe zones. Strange opened his eyes. Golden symbols flared under his boots, spreading outward in a circle. They ran across the grass like lines of fire, then vanished into the ground, invisible. The air changed. The gate's pressure wobbled. The system pushed harder. Strange pushed back. He wasn't closing the gate. He was stabilizing the air around it so it couldn't erupt. He was turning a wild tear into a controlled crack. His chest tightened. Sweat formed at his hairline. The voice in his mind shifted tone for the first time. Not angry, but less calm. Persistent interference. Strange's answer was silent. Good. The beast roared and slammed both fists down. The ground split. A shockwave hit Strange's dome from below, threatening to collapse it. Strange staggered. Jin-Woo, at the edge of the dome, screamed, "Doctor!" Strange nearly snapped back. "Don't call me that." Then realized Jin-Woo was calling him that because he trusted him. So Strange swallowed the annoyance and held the dome. His hands shook. His cloak wrapped tight around his shoulders like a brace. Across the field, Jin-Woo's shadows were thinning. They kept rising, but the beast was carving them fast. Jin-Woo narrowed his eyes. Strange felt that Jin-Woo was about to use something bigger, something he didn't want the world to see. Jin-Woo moved like a shadow flicker. He appeared on the beast's back. He drove his blade down, deep, then pulled it across. Dark blood sprayed. The beast bellowed and reached back, claws scraping air. Jin-Woo didn't jump away. He stabbed again. Then his shadows grabbed the beast's limbs, holding it in place for one heartbeat. One heartbeat was enough. Strange made a choice. He stopped trying to bind the beast. He bound the space around it. He drew a circle with both hands and snapped it closed. A tight ring of glowing symbols formed around the beast like a collar around the air. The beast roared and pushed against it. It couldn't understand what it was fighting. It wasn't fighting a wall. It was fighting the rules of the room. The system voice returned, now sharp at the edges. "You mimic the system." Strange's eyes burned. "I don't mimic you. I correct you." The round doorway appeared in the air beside the gate. Not a portal Strange made. A clean, perfect circle, like a hole cut into the world. It called to Strange's mind like gravity. Step through. Accept control. Strange felt a pull in his chest, deep and heavy. For a tiny moment, he imagined stepping through, seeing the center, grabbing the control panel of the gates and shutting them forever. He imagined the relief. He imagined the silence. He also imagined the cost. A world run by one set of hands. His hands. Hands that had once been proud and reckless. Hands that had once believed they knew better than everyone else. He remembered that lesson. He remembered what it felt like to be wrong and still have blood on your shoes. Strange's mouth went tight. He did not step through. Instead, he pointed at the doorway. He didn't speak to it like it was a god. He spoke to it like it was a tool. "Fine," he whispered. "If you're opening a channel, I'm using it." He flicked his fingers and sent a thin golden thread into the doorway. Not his body. Not his mind. A tracer. A harmless, stubborn line that clung to the system's signal. The doorway pulsed. The system voice went cold. Unauthorized observation. Strange smiled without humor. Get used to it. Then the beast broke free. It tore through Jin-Woo's shadows with brute force and leapt toward the dome. Straight toward the civilians still trapped inside. It was going to force Strange to choose. Hold the dome and let the gate grow. Or fight the beast and let people die. Strange's eyes widened. He didn't hesitate. He opened a portal in front of the beast. Not to send it away. To send its momentum sideways. The beast flew through and slammed into an empty section of the park, away from the crowd. Trees snapped. Dirt exploded. Cha-Hae-in dashed after it. Jin-Woo followed, silent and relentless. Strange used the half-second of space to strengthen the dome. He planted his feet and pushed the anchor web harder. Golden lines flared under the ground again, spreading farther, connecting more points. The gate above trembled. Its growth slowed. It didn't close, but it stopped surging. Hunters saw it and shouted in relief. Jin-Chul stared upward, eyes wide with a feeling he hated. Hope. Because hope makes you depend on things. And he didn't want to depend on a stranger. Not when the world could change overnight. Still, he forced himself to act. He shouted orders. "Contain the boss. Keep the civilians moving. Do not get pulled toward the gate." People listened. partly because Jin-Chul sounded like he would drag them personally if they didn't. Strange's hands began to shake more. He could hold the pressure, but he was not a machine. He felt the system push again, testing. Last offer. Strange's vision blurred for a blink. He saw a clean world. No gates, no monarchs, no hunters dying young. A soft voice in his mind. You can save them all. Strange swallowed hard. He answered with a single thought, clear and steady. I don't trust gifts from cages. He tightened his web. He didn't accept control. He accepted duty. The gate shrank slightly, just enough for people to gasp. Then it stabilized into a smaller contained tier. Not gone, but no longer a disaster. A controlled wound. Strange exhaled through clenched teeth. Across the park, Jin-Woo and Cha-Hae-in cut the beast down. Not quickly, not easily, but they did it. Jin-Woo's final strike was clean and silent. The beast collapsed, its body turning to ash and smoke, leaving behind a heavy silence. Jin-Woo didn't celebrate. He looked at Strange. Strange looked back, still holding the web. Jin-Woo's eyes asked a simple question. Did it try to take you? Strange gave a small nod. Jin-Woo's expression tightened just a little. And? Strange's voice was rough. It failed. Jin-Woo nodded once. Good. Above them, the round doorway in the air flickered. The system voice spoke one final time, colder than before. Variable refused integration. Variable remains unstable. The doorway snapped shut. The gate remained, smaller and controlled, like it had been forced into a box it didn't want. Strange's arms finally lowered. His body felt heavy. Jin-Ho ran up, breathless. You did it. You. Strange held up a hand. Don't say rank. Jin-Ho laughed once. Shaky. I wasn't going to. Strange's mouth twitched. Good. Chairman Go arrived with a few guards, moving slower than the chaos, like a steady center. He looked up at the contained gate and then at Strange. His eyes held pride and worry at the same time. You saved a city today, Gun-Hee said. Strange shook his head once. I bought time. Gun-Hee nodded. Time is what keeps people alive. Woo Jin-Chul stepped closer, face tense. He looked at Strange like he wanted to accuse him of something, but couldn't find the right angle. Finally, Jin-Chul said, that gate didn't behave like normal. Strange met his gaze, because it wasn't normal. Jin-Chul's voice dropped. It was forced. Strange nodded. Jin-Chul's jaw tightened. And you stopped it. Strange corrected him. Calm. I limited it. Jin-Chul stared at him, then looked away, thinking. Then he said the words Strange didn't expect. We will formalize your status, Jin-Chul said. Special consultant, emergency authority, limited oversight. Strange raised an eyebrow. Oversight. Jin-Chul's eyes hardened. I'm not giving you a blank check. Strange almost smiled. Good. I don't want one. Gun-Hee's voice softened. You will have support. Strange glanced at Jin-Ho, who waved like he was proud to be support. Strange sighed. Fine. Jin-Woo stepped closer, quiet. Your anchors. Strange looked at him. They worked. Jin-Woo nodded. So the system will push harder. Strange's eyes narrowed. Yes. Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. Then we keep stopping it. Strange held his gaze. We keep limiting it, until we find the center. Jin-Woo's shadows shifted, as if agreeing. They didn't shake hands. They didn't make a show of it. They simply understood. Two people who refused to be tools. The crowd began to cheer in the distance, not knowing who to cheer for, just desperate to cheer for something. Strange stood under the contained gate and felt the city breathe again. For now. And somewhere deep, far beyond cameras and ranks, the system watched the new web in the air around Seoul. It didn't look defeated. It looked interested. And that meant the war was not over. It was simply entering its next phase. Later that night, Seoul was quieter than it had any right to be. Rain fell lightly, tapping on rooftops and streets. Stephen Strange stood on a tall building near one of his anchor zones. He liked rooftops. They gave him space to think. They gave him distance from people who wanted answers he couldn't give. The red cloak hung heavy from rain, but it didn't seem bothered. It fluttered gently, like a living thing enjoying the wind. Below, lights reflected on wet pavement. Cars moved slowly. A few sirens sounded far away, but not the kind that meant monsters. Not tonight. Strange held a thin notebook in his hand. It wasn't a spell book. It was a normal notebook, cheap paper, worn at the edges. Inside were maps, symbols, and clean notes written like a doctor's chart. He stared at one page in particular. A sketch of the round doorway he kept seeing in reflections. Now he had a tracer's signature, faint, fragile, but real. He wasn't at the center, but he had a thread, a way to pull. He should have felt proud. Instead, he felt tired. He leaned his elbows on the rooftop ledge and let his shoulders drop. For a minute, he let himself feel it. The weight, the pressure, the endless idea of doors opening where they shouldn't. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, careful. Strange didn't turn right away. He already knew who it was by the quietness. Jin-Woo stopped a few steps away. He didn't bring shadows up. He didn't posture. He simply stood there, rain on his hair, face calm. "You're alive," Jin-Woo said. Strange snorted softly. "I noticed." Jin-Woo's eyes stayed on the city. "The system spoke to you." Strange looked at him. "It offered me control." Jin-Woo's expression didn't change. "And you refused?" Strange nodded. "Of course I did." Jin-Woo's voice was low. "Why?" Strange blinked once, surprised by the question. Then he answered simply, "Because if I take control, I become the system. And I know what I'm like when I think I know best." Jin-Woo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That's honest." Strange glanced at him. "So is your silence. You're hiding things." Jin-Woo didn't deny it. "Yes." Strange didn't push. He understood why someone hid power in this world. Ranks became chains. Fame became a target. Strange's voice softened. "Just don't let it use you." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly. "Same." A pause. Rain tapped on concrete. Then Jin-Woo said, "Your anchors changed the city." Strange looked down. "They changed pressure." "They changed people," Jin-Woo corrected. Strange frowned. "How?" Jin-Woo's gaze stayed on the street. "Hunters are arguing. Guilds are fighting over safe zones. The association is trying to make rules for a man they can't rank." Strange sighed. "Sounds about right." Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. "And civilians are less afraid." Strange's throat tightened slightly at that. He nodded once. "Good." A small silence followed. Then Jin-Woo spoke again, quieter. "You're not from here." Strange looked at him. "No." Jin-Woo's eyes stayed steady. "So why do you stay?" Strange didn't answer quickly. He thought about home, about New York, about people who knew his name and his mistakes. He thought about the mother at the bus stop. He thought about Jin-Ho shaking behind a pillar and still coming back the next day. He thought about a city forced to learn survival through blood. He finally said, "Because someone built this problem, and they built it so people can't opt out." Jin-Woo nodded once. Strange added, "And because if I leave now, it wins faster." Jin-Woo's eyes sharpened slightly, like that was the real answer. Strange looked at him. "You feel the same." Jin-Woo didn't smile, but his voice held agreement. "Yes." Strange exhaled. "Then we keep going." Jin-Woo turned toward the roof edge, ready to leave. Before he vanished into shadow, he said one last thing. "If you find the center," he said, "don't go alone." Strange watched him disappear, rain falling through the space where he had been. Strange murmured, "I won't." He wasn't sure if he was telling the truth. He hoped he was. The next morning, Strange found another folder on his table. Jin-Ho had placed it there before Strange woke up, like a sneaky squirrel storing nuts. Strange opened it with dread. The first page read, "Emergency cooperation agreement required." Strange closed his eyes. He opened them again. He signed it. "Stephen Strange, M.D." Then he tore off the back page and used it as a bookmark in his notebook. The cloak fluttered like it approved of the insult. Strange sipped his tea and looked out the window. For a moment, he saw the round doorway again in the glass. It was faint now, distant. Not gone, just waiting. Strange didn't flinch this time. He raised 2 fingers and traced a small symbol in the air. A quiet mark, a reminder to himself. Then he turned away from the window and picked up chalk. He had another anchor to place today, another small lock to add to the web, another patch on a world that didn't ask to be torn. Outside, Soul kept moving. Hunters trained. Guilds argued. The association made new rules. Rumors spread about the Portal Man and the Shadow King working together. Some people feared Strange. Some people wanted to own him. Some people simply prayed he would show up when the sky split again. Strange didn't care about the stories. He cared about the next scream he could prevent. He stepped into a portal and vanished, heading toward the next weak point in the city's invisible veins. And high above, where no one looked, the air shimmered once like a door testing its hinge. Life continued. Just different now. Because in a world of gates, a man who could lock doors had arrived. And Stephen Strange had learned a simple truth that fit any universe, any war, any system. Every door can save you. Every door can cost you.